Hi, and thanks a lot. Here on the screen is a little summary of my career so far. And one thing that Craig didn't mention was I did spend a few years and a few summers at YMCA Camp Elphinstone. The new curriculum that's coming out is really an opportunity for teachers to engage with kids. I've got a slide here that just summarizes some of the changes, and depending on your perspective, you might think, this is going to be a challenge. I'm hoping that most people see it as an opportunity to start engaging with kids differently in what would be something a bit more natural to the learning process. And the best educators will. And who are those best educators? Those are the people that have a real clear idea of their content, curriculum they want to cover. They've got the assessment, instruction all sorted out. But it's the third one that I want to talk about today a little bit, which is the students in front of them. Because ultimately, it's the knowledge of the kids in front of them that will make the biggest difference to their effectiveness as a teacher. So I'd like to ask, what do you see when you look at this? Now, depending on your perspective, if you're an elementary school teacher, you're looking at these kids a certain way. High school teacher might even be afraid to be looking at this picture. A parent might be looking. So your perspective is what you use to approach kids. I've had three distinct parts of my career that gave me perspective to what I do. First one was I spent some time at a camp. I became an elementary school teacher, and now I'm at the secondary. So I just talk about each one of those a little bit. When I went to Camp Elphinstone, and that story is crazy in itself, by serendipity, I ended up as a camp counselor at Camp Elphinstone, and it was hard work. You've got kids 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 8 weeks. It was hard. You have to keep them busy, teach them some skills. But what I learned from camp was that kids being outside is really the natural way they should be. Kids should be outside. Kids should be playing. Kids should be learning by doing, by being active. Also at camp, we learned to work as a group and overcome big challenges. This is me in a group of students with a group of campers. My camp group. We went up to the end of Clohome Lakes at the end of Salmon Inlet. And if you're wondering who I am, here's a little hint. That's me. Fearless leader of 14-year-olds heading to the end of Salmon Inlet. Anyway, there was lots of jobs on a trip like this that the kids would learn and working together, and that was part. At camp, it was about being a bit crazy, letting it go, being outside and letting sort of nature. Anyway, you get my point. Then I moved to elementary school, and I can tell you it was a bit different than camp. But I have to say that my experience at camp, I learned a lot more about kids from camp than I did from my university training to be a teacher education, because I had already spent so much time with them outside. It was a pretty easy transition. But I began to realize, okay, you can't have people running around in loincloths all the time with torches and being crazy. Okay, you had to have some semblance of order. So the elementary school experience made me realize that, we do need to have order in our environment. And if you have students who sit quietly and listen attentively, you thank an elementary school teacher, because they're the ones who are responsible for that. But then there was one thing that didn't sort of resonate well with me from coming from the camp experience, was sometimes the rules. There were so many rules at elementary school. And I remember going to an elementary school as a principal and taking over, and I took some of these signs down, because I really believed I wanted the kids to play and be free. It's okay for them to run up the slide backwards. It's okay for them to play tag on the playground equipment. Sometimes we put constraints, and I think it fights against that natural order. I think for elementary school, I learned if you had people setting really good examples, the kids were okay with just a couple of things. Be safe. It'll be okay. And then the other thing I tried to do at elementary is bring some craziness. This is a Beatles concert that we did at the school. That's the custodian is Ringo. Okay. So then I switched to secondary, and things are getting serious. I mean, here I was, elementary school with that camp background, and first of all, I noticed that that order was kind of not the same. This is our cafeteria. Although the kids had learned, they lined up, took their time, and each, to get their meals and that kind of stuff. So the order was still there, although sometimes it looked a bit chaotic. But then I walked around the halls, and this is not a picture of our school here at West Vancouver, but this is how it felt. I felt like sometimes the teachers were being sort of quasi-university. And I was going, why aren't they taking them outside? Why aren't they playing? Like, the kids are supposed to be doing things that are kind of fun. And in all fairness, some of those programs like the robotics and that are coming in. But I still see some of this stuff, and it doesn't make me feel good about what the kids are doing sitting there. And then you start listening in the hallways, and these are some of the words you hear. Homework, assignments, high grades. They start getting a little stressed out. And so it's not a surprise to me that we've started opening programs to deal with our kids who are having school anxiety. And it's somehow, in my mind, it's like we're not getting them outside. We're not playing. They're not getting in touch with nature. They're not doing the things that they were kind of are natural to them. And I think we need to remember that. Here is something even more ironic that I find at the secondary level. So we've got kids that are struggling, and what do? We do programs that are like elementary. We get tactile. We give them the things in their hands to try to learn things. And then when things are really not going well, we do programs that are a lot like camp. We take them outside. We try to get them in touch with the earth again, feel the organic of being part of the planet. So schools are about knowing about kids, and I'd ask you your perspective. Like, if you're elementary, secondary, like, what is it? And you should know them as kids that are outside, kids in the classroom, kids with their friends. We have to know kids from a varied perspective to do our best with them in the classroom. And I ask you again, what do you see now when you look at that, depending on your perspective? Well, I used to see that, and now I see this. And to me, they're the same. It hasn't changed. They're still kids. Context is slightly different. The skills and capabilities, what they can do, amazing. But they're still kids. Kids are always a work in progress, and I think it's really important as educators that we always remember that. So now I ask you here. I've been lucky. I've had a chance to be at camp, be at elementary, be at secondary. How about your perspective? What can we do as educators to change our perspective? And so I'd ask you, if you haven't worked with kids outside of the classroom, take them outside. That's a picture of me coaching a basketball team. It's been a real challenge at secondary, but a lot of fun. Take the kids outside. I bet you it'd be great for an English class to get outside and play tag. Get crazy, get down to their level, and also just do some listening. And remember, at the end of the day, the kids will remember the stuff that's more of a relationship, about having fun, and being engaged with them. So this is me. That's my story, and thanks a lot.